It seems like everywhere you turn nowadays, everyone's just got an opinion about everything, you know? Like scrolling through your feed, talking with friends, even just overhearing conversations. And it really makes you wonder,
It does.
and all that back and forth, like, is there really any way to definitively say whose opinion is the right one? Like, can we even do that?
Well, that's exactly what we're going to be diving into today. We've been looking at this really interesting piece called People and Their Opinions by Arnav Banerjee.
Okay.
And it really gets into this whole idea of why we have this constant flow of viewpoints and, whether any of them are truly, like, absolutely correct.
Right.
I'm
Right.
sure that's something you run into all the time.
Oh, absolutely, every day.
Yeah, it's just part of life.
So Banerjee starts off with this point that might seem kind of obvious at first,
Okay.
but it's actually super important. Talking and sharing our opinions is just easy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah.
You probably shared an opinion today without even really thinking about it, right? Right?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just such a fundamental part of being human.
Right.
We have this innate ability and, like, a real need to express our understanding of the world.
Yeah, I totally get that. And, sometimes that can lead to some pretty lively discussions, let's say.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Banerjee even talks about those debate shows where it seems like everyone's just trying to shout over each other.
Right.
And it shows you how strongly people feel about voicing their perspectives on, well, just about anything.
It really does.
But, okay, here's the big question for you.
Yeah.
Can we actually sift through all of that noise and say, okay, yep, this opinion over here is absolutely right, and that one's definitely wrong? Like, is that even possible?
That's the core of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is where Banerjee brings in this really interesting analogy. He shifts our attention to the world of computer programming. Imagine, right, you have these two programmers,
Oh.
one, let's say, in India, and the other's in Ukraine. They're both working on the same exact piece of code,
Yeah.
same programming language, everything.
Got it.
If they both happen to make the same mistake in that code,
Yeah.
their computer's going to flag it as an error.
Right.
And that error, it's universal. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter where they are.
Right.
That incorrect code, it just won't run properly until they fix it.
Exactly. Like a bug is a bug no matter what,
Yeah.
needs to be corrected no matter who wrote it or where it pops up. And you can see how in that world, in the world of code, wrong is very clear.
Yes, absolutely.
Black and white.
It is.
So interesting.
And that's what makes it such a powerful contrast to how we deal with opinions, you see. Because think about it.
Mm.
Person A believes, let's say, X about a certain topic, right?
Okay.
They might get into this whole argument with person B who believes Y about that same topic.
Sure.
But then maybe the very next day, person A talks to person C who also believes X, the same thing as them.
And then naturally, person A would think, okay, person B was wrong and person C is right.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like your own view has been validated.
It feels good, right? It feels like you've got confirmation.
Yeah.
But here's what Banerjee's pointing out.
Okay.
This isn't actually like that universal programming error we were talking about. Opinions, they're not like that,
Right.
Unlike coding errors, which a computer system flags, opinions are relative.
Okay.
What feels right or good or correct for one person can be completely wrong or even just nonsensical to someone else.
Right.
There's not that same built-in error message that pops up when opinions differ, you see.
It's like, what kind of music you like?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I might love jazz music and someone else might only listen to rock. We're not wrong, it's just personal taste.
Exactly.
But when you start talking about bigger, more complex issues,
Yes.
that's when we tend to fall into this trap of thinking that our opinion, like our preference,
right.
is the one that's objectively correct.
It's so easy to do.
Have you ever found yourself doing that?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a very human thing to do. And to really drive this point home, Banerjee has this really fascinating thought experiment, something for you to think about. What if computers could actually think,
Oh, okay.
and what if they had subjective errors?
What do you mean?
Like, imagine one computer looks at a piece of code and says, nah, that works fine for me,
Uh-huh.
while another computer looking at the exact same code flags it as a problem.
Huh. Okay.
Right?
I can picture them having, like, little arguments.
Yes.
No, my way of defining this function is the correct way.
Exactly. And it just highlights how crucial that universal standard is in the world of computing, right?
Yeah.
Without it, you'd have absolute chaos, all these different versions of correct code that can't talk to each other or work together.
Right.
And with us humans, we just don't have that universal standard for opinions. which is a big reason why we have all these disagreements and debates we see all the time.
And it really feeds into how we judge each other, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Banerjee talks about how we quickly label people as nice or not nice, reasonable or unreasonable, all based on whether their opinions line up with our own.
It's true. Think about it. How quickly do you judge someone based on just one opinion they express?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a very natural human tendency,
Yeah.
to gravitate towards those who agree with us
Yeah.
and maybe feel a bit uncomfortable or even distrustful of those who don't.
Right.
But Banerjee really pushes back against this black and white thinking. He suggests that there aren't inherently bad or good people,
Okay.
just individuals with different viewpoints that have been shaped by their own unique experiences.
Which is a really important reminder for all of us.
It is.
Just because someone has a different opinion on, say, a political issue,
Yeah.
it doesn't automatically make them a bad person.
Not at all.
Their perspective is likely coming from a whole bunch of different experiences and information they've come across in their lives.
Absolutely. And this leads to what Banerjee talks about as nuance and perspective.
Okay.
He argues that even opinions that sound completely wrong to you at first might actually have some valid points underneath,
Okay.
if you're willing to dig a bit deeper and understand the reasoning behind them.
So it's about looking beyond the surface level, like the actual words someone's saying,
Exactly.
and trying to understand, like, where is this viewpoint coming from? What experiences have they had that led them to think this way?
Yes, precisely.
Have you ever done that? Like, tried to really understand an opinion that you, like, totally disagree with?
Oh, yeah, all the time. It's challenging, but so important.
Definitely.
And on the flip side, Banerjee also points out that even opinions that we generally accept as good
Right?
or that seem obviously right, they might actually have flaws if we look at them critically.
Oh, interesting.
He suggests that there's real danger in blindly accepting something just because it aligns with what you already believe or because it's the popular view.
So it's about not just focusing on your side of the story,
Right.
but actually making the effort to look at the other side, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Exactly. And Banerjee even uses this really strong word,
What's that?
stupidity. He calls it stupidity, to neglect the other side of an argument.
Wow. Okay, that's a wake-up call.
It is. It underscores the importance of intellectual humility, recognizing that your understanding of something might not be the full picture.
Right.
And again, it comes back to this idea of the relativity of good and bad
Yeah.
when we're talking about opinions.
Right. Those aren't fixed labels.
They're not. They shift depending on individual perspectives and how we're evaluating them.
Okay, so given this constant flood of different viewpoints, different opinions coming at us all the time,
Right.
what does Banerjee suggest we actually do with all this information? How do we make sense of it all?
Well, he puts a lot of emphasis on your active role as a listener and as a thinker,
Okay.
because opinions come in this mixed form like we've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's really crucial for each of us to use our own senses and our critical thinking skills to decode those statements.
What do you mean by decode?
You know, it's about identifying what resonates with your own understanding, with your perspective,
Okay.
and also filtering out what doesn't.
So like being your own editor, kind of.
Exactly. Sifting through all this information and deciding what makes sense to you based on your experiences, your knowledge.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, as Banerjee points out, statements and opinions don't come with these labels, correct or
Right.
incorrect.
Right.
A statement is just one person's expression. Whether it's true or right or not, that's up for interpretation and debate.
Right. And ultimately, there's no universal standard, like some kind of official rule book to measure that truthfulness,
Exactly. There's no one yardstick that everyone uses to determine if an opinion is correct.
which is kind of scary thought when you really think about
It
it.
can be, yeah.
Like, no one has the ultimate answer.
That's the point Banerjee's making. We can't rely on some external authority to say definitively which opinions are right and wrong, especially for all these subjective things we debate about.
Okay, so what's the takeaway then? What does Banerjee ultimately advise us to do in this world of countless opinions?
His advice is actually pretty empowering. He says, yes, we should listen to all these different opinions that are out there.
Okay.
But then we need to engage our own senses and wisdom
I like it.
to filter and analyze them.
Right.
The real emphasis is on your own independent thought process.
So it's not about instantly accepting or rejecting everything you hear.
Right.
It's about actively thinking about it, using your own experiences and knowledge.
Precisely. The goal is to form conclusions that are, as Banerjee puts it, a pure product of your own intellect and experiences,
Okay.
rather than just echoing what others say. It's about cultivating your own informed and independent perspective.
So, to sum it all up, the key takeaway from Banerjee's piece is that opinions are subjective and relative.
Yes,
There's no easy answer, no definitive way to say who's right and who's wrong in most of our discussions.
that's it. And recognizing this inherent relativity,
Yeah.
it can be quite liberating in how you approach conversations and different viewpoints.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, how would understanding this idea that opinions are relative
Yeah,
change the way you talk to people, how you look at different perspectives? It's something to really consider.
definitely something to think about.
Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a great conversation.
Likewise.
And for everyone listening, keep those minds open and those opinions flowing.